to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. A series of conversations with the technicians, leaders, engineers, and innovators critical to ensuring power reliability, safety, education, and innovation. We discuss the many facets of the power industry with the unsung heroes who power the world in the 21st century. Sponsored by Southern Staffing Group. We support your power industry talent acquisition efforts. If it involves power, we have you covered. Plug in and join our host, Micah Clay, veteran, entrepreneur, and power enthusiast, as we delve into the world of power.
Welcome back, and thanks as always for joining us. Today is going to be a fun one and a bit more free-flowing than our traditional Q&A format. I would like to welcome Matt Mladenka, who has had a stellar career in marketing and sales. Many of you may know Matt from his almost 5 years with ProTech Equipment Resources. Matt and I have had several conversations in the past about power industry as a whole, and Matt also likes to track the industry trends, so we thought we'd hop on and just basically have a discussion about industry trends and training and a few trends that we are seeing with regards to test equipment from the test equipment world. Matt, my friend, why don't you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Hey, Micah, good to talk to you again, as always. Thank you for inviting me on the show. Just like you said, I spent the last almost 5 years with ProTech Equipment Resources, handling marketing, business development, sales, a little bit of everything, actually. Purchased a lot of our equipment for the last 2 years. And so, had a good thumb on everything that's going on in our industry, especially on the rental side.
I love that. Well, let's get this thing kicked off, my friend. This will be released in a few months, but for reference, for everyone else, we are about halfway through January as we record this. So with that out of the way, we are entering 2025. What are some of the things you are going to see from the industry trends perspective, and why do you think so?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've all seen, everybody I talk to in the industry is like, yeah, we're growing, we're looking for people. So there's a lot of a natural outtake and growth in this industry. And we'll get into that why in a minute. But I think one of the major trends you're going to see too is a bit of a backlog just still from COVID. I think you're going to see a lot of PE action, right? Private equity is very active in this industry. The books for companies in this industry are very attractive to them. And I think there are just certain private equity firms that have platforms for power generation and industry. So they're good at finding the good companies in this industry. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement on both the buy and the sell side this year. I think there's still pent-up demand where people have planned exits during COVID, but they haven't completed those exits yet. And I think they're actively looking, not just with the testing companies as well. I think you may see some equipment companies, maybe a few manufacturers go. Smaller to bigger. I think some of the larger manufacturers are eyeballing some gaps in their market. And so I think there's a lot of that on the table. So you're going to be seeing that. And of course, when those transactions do happen, then there's people movement.
Absolutely.
Right? So they're going to bring in their own people, other people, or they're doubled up on certain roles. So that's going to open up some people, or people just, they don't like the new boss, right?
Absolutely.
So they're out.
And to your point, man, I'm seeing the same thing, so I can echo those sentiments. I've seen an uptick in activity. Clients are reaching out saying, hey, can you fill this? We had this need yesterday. A lot of that is due to the COVID thing, but all this, that the data centers are driving so much of this, along with the renewables and the DC to AC integration and things like that. So couldn't agree more. And like you said, to the PE stuff, I'm privy to some of the stuff that's happening in the background. Obviously won't disclose, but very much so know of many companies that are in that boat. And it's no different than we saw in 2024, right? So Power Engineers and WSP and Sunbelt Solomon, Titan, and bought out which one was it? PSG, I think. Anyway, like it seems like every other month there's a new acquisition or a merger going on. And the promising thing is I'm also privy to some of those new bootstrap startups that are going out, and some of some of the awesome folks that we get to talk with on a day-to-day basis, and many of us know in the industry are pioneering their steps to get out there and produce more workforce for the industry and
and
the
that
ripple
and that's
cycle repeat.
that's a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's great too. And what you're really seeing is that wash, rinse, and repeat, right? These guys that have grown these companies, they've sold, their non-competes have expired, and they're back at it again, because we know when this, especially this industry, it's about relationships, right?
Oh, man.
So they're buying from you, right? They're not buying from your company, right? Your company's first when something's wrong, right? It's your fault, right? It's the company's fault, but they're really buying from you and your relationship. So it's not hard to take those relationships to another company when you go. So I think, we're going to see probably some new, we've already seen a few new NITA companies this year. I think there's a few more in the pipeline. Just disclosure, I'm on the NITA PowerTest committee. I'm on a couple of committees for NITA. Although I'm not active at ProTech anymore, they've asked me to stay on those committees. So we haven't had PowerTest yet, but obviously that's coming down the pipe. I'm assuming at this point PowerTest will be over, so make sure you sign up for PowerTest.
No, we'll get it out right before, because I know it's going down March, and I definitely want to put out any plugs that we can for PowerTest. What a fantastic event. Yeah. Went to Dallas. If you are anywhere in the electrical testing industry and you're not attending PowerTest, shame on you. It's a fantastic event, and tons of drink and fun and learning and networking and relationship building. And man, we just solidified so many relationships that way, and they just progress from there. So if you're missing that opportunity, shame on you.
Yeah, and it's in Orlando this year, right? Yep. And it's I think time your spring break properly, right? It's in mid to late March.
Yep, I've got the dates here. I've got them on my notes here. PowerTest is 11 through 15 in Orlando.
Yeah, and so it's the same hotel it was 2 years ago. I think record number of people in the trade show for trade show exhibitors. I think we topped to 80.
Wow!
Just this week. So really good, strong response from the vendors. I think registration's doing really well. You're going to see 1,000 people there. And so if you haven't registered at this point, you may want to start calling the hotel every day to see if the space opens up, or you're going to be staying across the street.
Absolutely.
But no, it's going to be great. I know the board and the committee have worked really hard to really bring something memorable to everybody, and just having to keep remaking it and build it every year. It gets obviously tougher and tougher each year. I think the trade show area is fun because the companies just keep trying to outdo each other. It's like that NFL commercial where the neighbors are across the street just trying to get a better experience for people, which certainly benefits the attendees. So I think it's worth the time to go. And then there's just the learning, right? I think, we'll get into this in a bit, but just every industry you get into now is a huge need for becoming a lifelong learner. And especially this one, right? Your paycheck can depend on it. You can vary your paycheck greatly by becoming a lifelong learner and pursuing, level 2, level 3, level 4 technician, training and becoming a trainer and doing all those things that just, if not for yourself, advances the industry as well, because a lot of people are retiring right now, and you got a lot of people coming in, but I don't think we're replacing everybody that's going out. And that's part of the problem. I think the other problem too that relates to training is the equipment is getting so sophisticated. People are becoming button pushers, right? They know how to run the test, but they don't really know quite why they're testing what they're testing. And so I think there's some knowledge drain to that. So, I've done a lot of webinars the last couple of years with my good friend Tom Sandry, and that's just one of our soapboxes, right? That just keep learning, learn the why, right? Understand why you're doing what you're doing. Absolutely. I'm a marketing guy. I'm not a trained field technician, but I love the spirit of what we're doing, and I constantly listen intently to what Tom is doing because I understand these are the people that keep your power on, and this is a critical infrastructure that we can't let recede. It's to the detriment of our country and our people if we don't have the right people performing the right test and keeping our grid on. And the drain on the grid is just getting exponentially incredible. And everybody says, why is the industry growing? Well, I mean, look at the data centers, right? You look at the core people doing the data centers, Amazon, Microsoft, uh, Apple, all these companies that are putting in these data centers, Virginia. Now I think there's some big investment in the Midwest.
They're everywhere, man.
Up
It's
in the
Virginia,
Pacific
Arizona,
Northwest,
Ohio,
West
Oklahoma's even
Texas,
got
wherever
it's
there's land,
crazy. Yeah.
right? And look, the testing companies are smart. They're opening offices in those areas and recruiting heavily. But that's also a bit of a new set of skills, right? The data center is a little different than going up a pole.
Right.
So, yeah. So now you need new skills on top of that too. And one of the things that NITA's doing, again, I'm not here in an official capacity for NITA, right? I've been very active in NITA for the last few years. And I really like the direction they're headed in with all this. In fact, just working on an apprentice program.
Which it's glad to hear that there's something moving in that direction. So, yeah. and just to that point, we have a bunch of the conversations, and I love the fact that there is a solidified pathway of advancement, right? Like if you're a technician, you can do your time in experience requirements, have the knowledge base, test to the next level, advance on that skill set and move up. That is phenomenal. But I've also heard feedback. It's like we're hurting so bad for new talent right now. And it's and I know of several the EPC companies out there that are building their own internal workforce programs. Qualys has Qualys U, obviously, and some of the bigger ones do. But even some of the smaller players are actually doing that and really being heavily focused on military or your RCC programs or the VOTEX or whatever it may be. And to that point, it's just because we don't have enough. And if you're not building that talent and nurturing it young at the 1 and 2 level and getting those folks in, it's very, very difficult. And how do you accelerate that? It's like trying to find those core talent pools that you can really pull from. So seeing the same trends. And then to your point of the data centers and everything, that's exactly why I chose the direction we did for Southern Staffing Group. I'll always like to share the story of whenever we were trying to figure out what niche we wanted to go into, it was going to be ag or forestry because we're based in Mississippi and that's where it is. Not a lot of business to be made in ag and forestry from that perspective. And just looking around. And so what I did was just a NAICS review, like what industries are we looking at on a nationwide perspective, and what is my best guesstimate of what is going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking, then I happen to get an opportunity to recruit into the NITA side of things via a split fee thing. And I'm like, okay, this is the space I want to be in. And then, like to your point, you just learn and learn and learn. And man, this is a great industry with tons of longevity for years to come.
Yeah. So, if you're an electrical engineer or if you're a tester, you'll never be out of a job.
No.
Not day one. You can command top price, and companies will fight over you left and right. So I think, if you're trying to figure out what to do with your life and you're sitting there and you're not an engineer, just go be a testing apprentice, right? I mean, you can travel, you can put in overtime, you can make a really good living, without a college Absolutely. Degree, just becoming an apprentice. So I think those are great career paths. I've always, said to somebody looking for direction, 18-year-old looking for direction that isn't going the traditional college route, I said, look, enlist or go be a test tech.
Absolutely.
You're gonna...
or another one I like to plug as well, which a lot of people don't give enough credit to, is like your unions, right? So what you may say, this, that, or other, but that JATSI program, my little brother, he was an apprentice to journeyman and has the ability, to your point, of traveling. He's got a little travel trailer with his dog and they go from site to site. And man, he's doing great. As a journeyman electrician, he's clearing $200,000 a year, depending on where you're willing to go work and overtime and things. So
as a journeyman, yeah,
as a journeyman, yeah,
exactly. So do it for 15 years and go retire.
Absolutely,
start your own company, right? And that's kind of my next point too. I think is we can offer all these programs like Tom Sandry. We had a great learning platform at ProTech to help technicians get their continuing education hours. I think he's restarted it over at Vector Power. So if you're looking for a training program to get your continuing education hours, go see Tom at Vector Power. He'll hook you up. But then what do? All of a sudden, and this problem, right? You're a great field test technician, and hey, I want you to be the ops manager for this location.
Absolutely.
I have to manage people. I don't know how to manage people. Then you have to learn the soft skills, right?
Yep.
And then you have to do stuff that you may not want to do. Same thing in sales, right? You could be the best salesperson in the world. That doesn't mean you're going to be a great sales manager.
Right.
So now you need to go find the resources, or hopefully you work for a company that invests in not just the technical training and skills, but those soft skills as well. How to attract and retain great employees, how to manage a team, how to work cross-functional, how to do the analytics. You got to understand people, processes, and cash, right?
Absolutely.
If you're a marketing guy, you still need to understand how cash affects the business, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and senior managers, they focus on top line revenues too much, and you need to be looking at your cash situation.
Cash flow is king, man. Every day.
Cash flow, and we see this in this industry all the time, right? I can just tell you from experience, you got certain very large companies that, we pay on net 180. They're naming their terms. We kind of joke, yeah, we're net 52. They come up with these weird things, and they're watching their cash flow cycles, right? They're saying, okay, well, when do we have to pay for it? And then how long do we need to hold our cash? And that's just smart. So, I mean, you got to push back on that sometimes. We're not going to do business with you. There's all sorts of competitors.
Absolutely.
So I know it's a fine line to walk, but, I think as a person coming into management, right, these are the things you need to study. You need to study how to manage people, how to manage cash, how to plan. We were talking earlier before we started, you have a 10-year goal for your company.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man.
We call it, we call it a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious
goals. Yep.
It should be a very big stretch, but reachable if you put the right resources and the right aggression to it. So yeah, those are things I think that kind of go into phase 2 learning, right? Because by the time you're 30 years old, 35 years old, you don't want to go up that tower much anymore, right?
Absolutely.
And so they want you to move into management, and they're going to open new offices, and so you got to learn those soft skills as well.
And that's very important. And I'll make a quick plug for reading. And one of the things that, coming from a military background, I will say the military does right, is we get a lot of formalized leadership training at various levels that are tailored to those various levels, from E4 to 5 to 6, and then the officer side. And then you go through PXO leadership school, and that's a whole different level of leadership skills that you're taught to run command level, large visionary projects and kind of command by negation, type situations in those particular aspects. And that's one thing I think a lot of the veterans do take for granted. And to your point, like if you're that technician, you're going to have to push yourself beyond that comfort zone. And it's a new step in the learning, the phases of learning here. And even for me, it was like starting a new business. I'd never started a new business. So what the hell do you do? I didn't know you got to do your FinCEN BOI, and then you got to have your EIN and your LLC and the articles of organization and meeting minutes and all this crazy crap. And that's not something you traditionally find in a formal educational setting. I've got an MBA, and we didn't touch on any of that stuff. Sure, I can talk to your 8K SEC filings and things, but not as relevant for a startup or a small mom and pop. So just trying to even figure out those little pieces of it are challenging in their own right. And so you always have to evolve and adapt your skill sets to meet them,
Yeah, and if I'll get a quick plug in here if I can.
Absolutely.
For if you are in senior management, with our companies that are in our sphere, we there's some great programs out there. One I just want to name is the Scaling Up program, the book Scaling Up we were talking about beforehand. I know you've read it. I've read it a couple of times. Came out in about 2012, I think. It's kind of the version 2 of Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And one of the things I did in ProTech and I've done with companies I've always done is daily huddles, weekly meetings, quarterly planning. You got to put those things in place. Focus on your rocks, get your goal, and laser focused on those goals. So, if you're looking for a place to start, just look up Scaling Up, right? Get the book. Read the book.
It's very similar and aligns a lot with the EOS side for a lot more people that are familiar with EOS and Gino Wickman. Very, very similar constructs there.
Absolutely. And you'll see a lot of these private equity platforms too are using some form of Scaling Up or some form of EOS that they've modified into their own platforms that they put their operators through, right? As soon as they acquire it. Yeah, sure.
And all that stuff is so salient, and that's another point to the military. And I hate to keep bringing it up, but a lot of that stuff, it was like, aha, this is why we did what we did in the military, and a lot of it's based on and the workflows and your daily cadences for meetings and things like that. I was like, I lived that for 23 years. That looks pretty familiar.
Well, you probably heard this saying: if you can run a company, you can run a company. So, meaning if you can run a company in the military, you can run a company outside of the military.
Right. There, with a caveat, you need to know your industry and get a little bit of a knowledge. I mean, I think there's a lot of universal trends that kind of carry over, but
Yeah.
to that point, like just knowing those industries, and like I wouldn't be anywhere near as had the success. I will say, without trying to sound overconfident, had the success that we've had in the industry without truly taking the time to learn the industry and going and doing site visits and reading substation 1 and 2 of the AVO Institute's, substation manuals and stuff like that. Like, will I ever need to know that? No. But does it help whenever we're vetting and screening and doing all those things? Absolutely. So mastery of your workspace is definitely important too.
Well, there's two sides to that too, right? Like I wasn't in the power generation or equipment industry when I came into ProTech, but I learned it pretty quick, right? And you got to have the right person that can come in and say, on my own, I'm going to learn everything I can as quick as I can. So you got to have the right seat in the right butt, right?
Jim Collins, right seat, seat on the bus.
Person on the bus, I think they say. But on the other side of that, right, really good companies that have a great system of learning and development. There's a movement and a flow through the company. So when they need to fill a senior position, theoretically, everybody should just move up, right? And then they're backfilling at a level that's an entry level that they're taking through the whole training system, right? So those are great companies. How do you find those companies if you want to work for one? Well, just, pull out your list of best companies to work for in your local area. Those are typically the companies, with, I would say, more than maybe 1,000 employees. Those are your companies that are going to put the dollars and the time from an HR perspective into good learning and development systems. And they typically, even though they're posting jobs externally, they're promoting from within.
Absolutely. Right? And we're seeing a trend towards that as well, trying to fill some of those gaps. And again, we're not cheap on the staffing side of things or the recruitment side, right? We're 25 to 30,000 to 40,000 a pop, depending on the agreement. And so that's very expensive. So the more you can kind of, get your top of funnel pipeline filled with all that junior talent and then start growing and nurturing them, save the money. Don't use us. As stupid as that may sound from my perspective.
And that's why you see a lot of companies very actively involved in, there's a lot of junior colleges that have
RCC
programs. Yeah. Here in Texas, it's Texas State Technical College down in Waco. They have a campus in Dallas. And I think, you're seeing a big push on these junior college campuses, which I think is great. I mean, you're seeing this stuff in high school now. There's there are these training programs, and they partner with colleges and junior colleges. So by the time the kids get to college, they're sophomores and juniors, and they're already. And there's some programs. I know there's one locally here in Dallas in our school district where you can go through cybersecurity, and I mean, by the time you graduate, you can go straight into the marketplace. I mean. Obviously, something like that, you probably do want advanced degrees, but you can go straight into the market with making good money while you attain those degrees. So I think, in hindsight, we're old farts, and gosh, if we had the internet when we were little, we'd be dangerous. I think there's just so much opportunity now, even just at the high school level. Like you go on these campuses now, you go, oh my God.
It is wild. Absolutely.
I didn't have air conditioning in Texas until I was in high school.
We had those trailers, like that were there from the trailers that were supposed to be temporary and stayed there since for the rest of time. It feels like.
Yeah, well, I think, but to attract, we've talked about a lot of things to attract this good talent and retain the talent. But I think initially too, you just got to be visible, right? Like doing what we're doing now. I think companies that are producing content for content's sake is stupid. I think companies that are producing content to educate in a smart way that provides value to people, you're building your brand with that, and people want to work for that company. So I think, if you're doing content in a smart way, it's well worth the investment to do content.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's been our primary BD pipeline for everything that we've done. We've been, like I said, I'm very pleased with the success we've had to date. It might not meet everybody's mark, but I am, and I attribute all that to putting out the social media content. And again, it was a byproduct of me not working in the industry, not knowing how to do it. I knew I needed to learn more about it. This is the space that we were going to be in. So the only thing I could think is educate where you can, get alignment, get trust that way, right? It is a business and it does serve a purpose. The primary is to educate, but I want the byproduct of it being a business development pipeline for me. And that's played out true to date. So it is fantastic. And any company, any CEOs that I talk to, and a lot of even our clients internally, I'm like, look, I want to get you on. I want you to, show the inner workings of the company. What are your core values about? What do you value culture wise? And what are you working on? And some are like, I just don't want to be in front of a company, in front of a camera, or we want to build quietly. And that was very much the mantra that would be associated with that 80s, 90s grind, right? Before all this stuff was out there. If you're not leveraging this, you are leaving so much market share on the table right now, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, so. And it's not hard to do. No. We were talking earlier. My 12-year-old's editing from her phone. It's easy to do. But what does it provide? What is the differentiator, right? So if you look in the equipment rental business, it's a crowded space for as big as the market cap is.
Right.
So that said, everybody's still growing, and you kind of scratch your head going, why? Well, for starters, it's a needed service. There's, who wants to buy, 20 M4000s at $80,000 a piece. Right. So, so there's that, but there's also, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, Tom and I did that with our training, right? Mm-hmm. So we're offering free training, for exchange for hours. That, was an amazing opportunity for people every month. But, it also got eyeballs on us, right? And that know, like, and trust, right? They know us, they know Tom.
There you go.
They like us, now they trust us with their business on top of that. So that was a differentiator. Providing a service. Everybody's doing rental. Everybody started doing calibration, right? And why did we start doing calibration for other people?
Or glove testing, right?
We were doing our own calibration, and then everybody, didn't want to wait 3 months to get their equipment back to the manufacturer. Then ProTech started doing repair. We got really good at repair. And then everybody wanted to start giving us their equipment because they didn't want to wait a year to get their equipment back. And so, it's hard to keep up in repair. So just trying to stay ahead of our competitors was part of it. And then really, doing some things externally that we were doing internally well. And so I think that's what we were able to bring to the market as differentiators. So
I was literally about to say, you identified the differentiators with which to work from, which is very much, I guess I stole your model, even though I didn't know it,
Well, and then just hit the gas and do it well, right? Do it well to where the problem is you have too much business, right? And you have to figure out the grow and scale part versus beg and borrow for business. So yeah,
like I told you before this, man, that's where we're at. And holy hell, blessing and a curse.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that a lot too today. Is just everybody's too busy, and I don't even know that you're trying to do more with less. You're just trying to do a lot more with what the same.
Not enough hours in the day, man.
It's. You look on all the job boards and all the company websites that they all want engineers and testing techs. There's not a lot of marketing people listed for job openings for these testing companies because they already got the business, right? The business is we need to go do the work.
Absolutely.
And we need to do it well, because if we don't do it well, we're going to cause a bigger problem. And so we need knowledgeable people who know how to do their job. So so all that goes in, but you still have to work on your brand, right? That just because you have all this business doesn't mean you don't need to work on your brand. Again, it goes back to that know, like, and trust. If you're going to play the PE game, right, your brand is important.
Absolutely.
To your investors, it's certainly important. To the people who work for you, it's certainly important. Who do you want to work for? Man, I want to work for the guy who I know is going to take care of me, who's going to take care of my family. If I have an emergency, instead of saying get back to work, they're going to say take as much time as you need. Who treats you right? That's what part of your brand story tells people.
Absolutely. Yep. I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think that's super salient. Yep. Beautiful. Now, kind of what are we seeing? So I want to kind of shift a little bit, and this is, I know you're kind of removed a little bit from the ProTech scene, but what are you seeing test equipment wise out in the industry as far as new advancements on the horizon, and what are we seeing? Do we have any new competition to your Meggers and Dobles out
Yeah,
there? Or are there
sure.
anything worth
Yeah,
considering?
I'm not that removed from it, but I can tell you a couple of things. Um, some of the old secondary test equipment started getting hot, and part of it was it was getting hard to get, and we got good at fixing it. And so we just all this old secondary stuff from the 80s and 90s, man, all of a sudden on eBay it went woo, because everybody all of a sudden wanted it because theirs was broken. And all the new stuff now, they're coming out with all these combo units of this, and this thing does 6 things, and that's great, but man, it's expensive. And you look at the breakers too. I think breaker testing, man, there's some crazy new breakers out there now, overseas breakers, and people will call us, go, hey, we got this breaker. We had this whole breaker matrix. So like we knew if this is a breaker, this is a test kit you needed. And so if you don't know, call ProTech, they can help you out. But I'm sure anybody who's been in the industry on the rental side for quite a while can help you out on that. But they're starting to see breakers from Asia and things that you've never seen before, and they don't know what to test with. And
That's interesting. So would those not fall under your normal traditional standards you would see under IEEE standards for breakers and things, or where are they being seen?
Maybe the standard, but it's the piece of equipment needed to test it.
Gotcha.
You're right, because you got different breakers need different pieces of equipment, and identifying the right piece of equipment, and then you find the manual on some obscure website and go, okay, there it is. Wow, never seen one of those, and you try to search and find it. So yeah, that's something that I've seen several field engineers tell me, that they're seeing breakers they've never seen before. But I think equipment wise, one of the strongest companies that I'm really always been very bullish on is Raytech.
Interesting.
The mini Atos. Paul and I always get an argument on how to pronounce it. I think you like my way better. I said Atos. He said Atos. But it's one of those little combo units, and you think about it, like you're going to use a Doble for $80,000, or you can get a mini Atos for, I don't know what they cost now, 35, 36, somewhere around there. It does 2/3 of the work that the Dobles do for a considerably less price. So if you're, a small testing company, that's something maybe to look at. If you're going to do some CapEx on that, otherwise rent the Doble. Dobles, Dobles are a rock. They're a great piece of equipment, but they're not without their share of problems. I know they've had some board problems recently with some COVID era parts, and they've had to do some board replacements, some board swaps on some of the newer M4000s. But the Raytech stuff just doesn't break. It can get abused in the truck, but it doesn't break. I mean, we had one that came back, and man, it had like overspray all over it. We're like, did you put this in a paint booth? How did this happen? So, people don't exactly treat their equipment very well, especially if it's not theirs. So, the other thing too is you lose a pair of cables. You lose the cables to an M4000, man. That's $22,000 cable set. Yeah. So, if UPS or FedEx goes and misses that cable box, you get the unit but not the cables, right? That's an expensive CapEx hit, and you probably didn't insure that. So, that's the other thing, right? Having shipping this stuff is always fun. But no, I'm really bearish on Raytech. You got the the single units, the winding resistance, the TTR, like the Mark III, very, very solid unit. But like I said, you can get the combo unit now in the Mini Atos, which is a great piece of equipment. Megger. So this is an interesting it's not a little unit, it's a big unit. It's about the size of a small desk. The Spy 4000, the primary injection unit. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's like, if you've ever seen so Megger has the big DDA 6000, it's the big push cart primary injection tester. So the Spy 4000 is about half the size, and it's considerably lighter and easier to ship. I know at ProTech, we had the big we like the ETI 6000 over the Megger unit. But yeah, it was it's dangerous to ship, right? So we actually made our own crates, and we made them out of aluminum. They were about half the weight of a wooden box and a lot safer. So solved a problem there. But if you own your own unit, right? You either go make a custom crate or it's going in the back of somebody's pickup truck.
Right.
And so, but I think the Spy 4000 is a lot more portable. It's going to do a lot of the work you can do with the 6000 up to a certain point. So that might be a good investment. Then in the lines I know we're just talking about, like TTRs, right? The Meggers come out. I think they've come out with it. I'm not sure yet. They kept delaying. It's called the Tau 3, TAU 3. And that looks like a good little unit. We had some on order when I left ProTech, but I think that one's probably going to make some noise. I would guess they're going to display it at PowerTest.
I was going to ask, there's probably
PowerTest to see if they have it out yet. I know it's gone through some delays, but one thing about Megger, I know people in the field say, "Well, Megger depends where it comes from. Is it coming from overseas, or is it coming from Valley Forge, or is it coming from
Right.
And I guess there's certain quality issues that have cropped up, but I know they've really focused on quality control. And I think they got a lot of that fixed, so I wouldn't be that worried about it. Megger's really good on the repair side too. If you do have something break down, their turnover's really good. Doubles is too, right? I think they've all more or less gotten caught up for the most part. I think Vanguard's taken a while longer, but on the repair side, they've gotten a lot better. But time wise, but I think the Megger stuff I've always really liked working with. I think it's an easy piece of equipment to get into action. I think the designs are good. AEMC is one of my favorites.
My boy
Guys
Greg.
over at love the guys over at AEMC. The PEL 103s. I think they have a replacement coming down the pipe. I think it's out. I know they've been talking about it for a while now. It's close.
Yeah, I know it was, and I had Greg on not too long ago with Tom Wire again, and we were talking through it. That one hadn't released yet either, so I'm kind of spilling the beans here.
I think they're calling it the 113. Yeah, so be on the lookout for the PEL 113.
Maybe, man, I can't remember off the top of my head. All the model numbers is like Jesus. There's a bunch.
Yeah, and it's like people in the field, they got their preferences. Some guys they're the Dranitz guys, they use the Dranitz or whatever. Like the PEL is a good line of equipment, and so I think that's if you're looking for, you're doing a lot of work in those data centers and whatever. The PEL line's good. And then something, I don't know if you've talked to these guys before or not. There's a IR camera called Fotric.
I haven't.
Fotric. They're red. They're mega red. And it's if I've seen one product that is going to maybe shake up Fleer and Fluke's grasp of the IR camera industry, it's Fotric. Because
really,
okay. I've met the founder of that company. It's he's from China. He worked for Fleer for a long time. Okay. He's a great engineer. So gotcha. You really you're getting like this Fleer quality product for a much better price. Gotcha. So if price point is an issue, I think they're also doing some of the new sound pieces that are picking up the acoustic. So Brett Hammonds and I went out, tested some of the acoustic partial discharge detectors, and we did it on a kind of windy day. Probably not a good idea. So those do have their limits. But I think in certain places, like those are some really good products. I know the one we looked at from I don't remember if it's Fluke or Fleer, but it was like $20,000. Yeah,
they're definitely pricey.
There, and these Fotrics are considerably cheaper. So I think that's really a good one. Fotric. If you want to look up that brand, if
I definitely didn't spell it right.
Looking for an inexpensive but a pretty good, and its functionality is going to work very similar. So if you can operate the FLIR, you're going to be able to operate the Photric.
And just to that point of that ultrasound and the IR thermography stuff, that is a fascinating space as well. I didn't realize how big of a footprint it had. And we're having a conversation with Drew Waltz right now, who's with Iris. And man, that is just some fantastic tech. And the amount of stuff you can do with it is phenomenal as well, even outside of power.
Yeah, absolutely. And with some recent regulation changes, this kind of, especially how it affects, the infrared side of the business, I think you're seeing a lot more people jump into it from a testing perspective. I know that's, there's a lot of different cameras out there. There's some good brands out there, but yeah, I'd check out Photric. I think
I'm definitely going to check them out. I've got a whole list of research to do.
I think you're also going to see one, and man, I wish I'd written the name of it down. Man, I just had a jump drive from them lying around here and it didn't work, so I threw it away. Otherwise, I'll tell you who it is. But they're running around. They're green. They're like a lime green. They're a European company that private labels a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
So they're bringing in their own retail brand into the United States, and they just started doing that last year.
What's their product offerings looking like? Are they or with regards to what are they working on? Do you know?
That whole kind of AMC Photric,
gotcha.
Clear, kind of all the
multi tool kind of organization.
Yeah, a lot of handheld stuff. Yeah, and like I said, we don't know who's manufacturing for who, but you change the design up a little bit, and this is what you get. So I think what happened is they saw the market really take off in the United States, and they said, well, let's create a product where we can interact. Right. But they don't have any brand recognition. So I think, here's the real catch when you're buying stuff that for brand recognition. What happens when it breaks? Where do you send it?
Right.
So I know Photric was working on a repair facility here in Dallas. If that breaks and I can send it to Dallas and get it repaired, great. I don't want to have to send it to China, right? Because then I'm down. Unless you send me a replacement, right? And they seem really good about wanting to do business and wanting to make you happy and get their products out in the market. So yeah, I would keep an eye out for them at upcoming trade shows, and the thermography stuff. Obviously, Greg, I think, is like a level 4 thermographer. Like Greg Wong's really.
Mr. Waltz is definitely, he's a master 3, I think.
So there's a couple.
Drew Waltz. There you go.
Yeah, and Greg Wong from AMC.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. No, Drew, I thought we were talking about Drew. Yeah, Greg's definitely got it as well.
Very, very qualified thermographers, and there's a couple of companies out there that do the thermography training. I think you might have talked about them in the past, and there's some individuals too that do it as well. So I think if you're looking for thermography training, a lot of times what happens in these companies, right? They'll have a technician who is a field technician and the thermographer, right?
Right.
So it's not really necessarily a stand-on profession. Now, it could be if you're an inspector, if you're a home inspector, or you're inspecting commercial businesses, I think that's a great licensure to have. But yeah, and that's I think getting outside of the testing market, electrical testing market, those guys, those inspectors don't really think that. I don't even think they know they could rent a camera. So,
right.
Maybe
probably not.
Maybe they do.
I
don't know. But yeah. So when you're doing that, if you're looking for much more affordable, kind of, I don't even say entry level because these are good cameras. I would say
really? So
for more
pictures, great, good granularity and resolution.
Yeah. Getting the pictures into reports and stuff, I think it's going to work very similar to
awesome.
FLIR, and so yeah, it's familiar, which I think is great. So repair would be the only question I would have on it, and I know they were trying to work through that. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the more exciting products I've seen line wise in the last year and a half.
Very cool. Now, with regards to, we mentioned PowerTest earlier. Do you know of any upcoming releases? I know that's a good platform where people are releasing their latest and greatest equipment. I know there were some pretty cool ones last year. You heard of anything that sounds exciting this year?
I don't. I'm going to be as surprised as you are when we see it. I think so. That's good. Obviously, when I was buying equipment, I was much more in the loop on them trying to sell it to me in advance. But here's, like I said, everything's getting smaller, everything's getting more multifunction, everything's getting simpler. I think you're also seeing a lot of stuff working just in general with Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the newest feature. Just being able to remotely download the reports you need to your cell phone or some way to get it to your laptop other than using the thumb drive. So I think that's a generic feature that's going in across the board. And I think, as our industry grows, I think you'll see some new players in, especially just getting outside of test equipment, just getting into the hardware, like the transformers. You're going to see more European, more Asian companies enter. I mean, if you go to some of these big trade shows, that's, everybody's either from Germany or China, it seems like.
I was going to say the Transformers. I've been hearing horror stories about the Chinese and Indian Transformers lately from the field. So if they want to get a foothold, they probably need to fix the QA a little bit.
And testing them is that adds a degree of uncertainness to the testing side of things as well, and getting parts. I know the
Absolutely.
parts business is doing well. Getting parts as quick as you can. There's a backlog of need.
Seems like there's damn near a backlog on everything.
On everything. I'll tell you. So this is interesting too. So we're talking about companies. So I have a little small business as well. Epic Test Equipment, and so if you're doing cable testing and you want a quick, more efficient way of doing it, I'm putting together cable testing kits.
Cool. Very cool.
And the problem is you can't get the parts. They're hard to get, right? I have a good source, a reliable source. I build to suit. So,
very cool.
A couple of weeks, I can get you a kit. So,
what all offerings you have right now for what scenarios, equipment, and all that?
Yeah. So if you're doing 15 kV low break, 25 kV low break, 25 kV dead break, and I'll have a 35 kV dead break available in May. So
awesome.
Also, I put them into transit cases, so custom fit transit cases. That way, you're not throwing all the parts in a bag and then the parts missing or it's banged up or whatever like that. So I think that's an important part of it as well.
No, very cool. How long you been in doing that? That sounds like there's definitely, and obviously there's arbitrage in an industry. So you've identified a problem, right? That's the root cause of it. Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
It's very, very niche. Yeah, just really just started.
Okay, so, very cool.
Yeah, just started. Only way is up.
Absolutely, man. I'm living the same dream / nightmare here.
We're off to an okay start.
That's
awesome. It's very niche. Again, like I said earlier, you know what? Your number one job as a company is to solve somebody's problem.
Absolutely.
And you do it well and you do it fast, and they'll come back and see you. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I think there's a lot of demand to buy these kits, and they're not out there. They're very difficult to buy. So
that makes total sense. Most of these test
companies, like that is not new, right? Shermco, all these companies have been making these kits themselves for a while, but to requisition that, they got to know what to get. They have to know you got to come from different sources. It's a pain in the butt. So I'm just trying to make it easy, right? Hit the easy button, just order one. And and the same thing with the primary injection, the copper arm test kits as well. The stab sets. This is an interesting one I've seen as well. We were doing it at ProTech. I think ECP was doing it. It's just, again, test technicians with a good mechanical aptitude making their own sets, right? Those copper sets are freaking heavy, man. You put them in the travel case, it's 120 pounds.
Wow.
And so it almost takes two old guys to lift it, And I've seen kind of off the cup, aluminum ones being made.
Really?
And I think there needs to be a lot of testing done on it, but so far so good. I think everybody's who's used the aluminum ones have done them to great success. I think the aluminum's a bit softer than the copper, so these guys will ratchet those things down really tight, and they get a little bent maybe over time. But the copper ones are I won't say they're necessarily cheaper because you got to custom make them, but they're certainly lighter. They're about 60 pounds in the case.
Oh, wow.
So I think you're going to see what once was a home brew product now going to be coming mainstream with some of these bigger companies that produce primary injection units and offer an aluminum option. Or at least I know you can get them through the rental companies, like I said. But I think you'll see the manufacturers start looking at alternate materials other than copper to provide a similar outcome with a bit of an easier job on the technician of hauling it around. So yeah,
No,
that's a new one. If you're interested in one of those, let me know. Email me. I'll.
You have a website up yet, or are you still working through all that fun jazz?
It will be shortly. EpicTestEquipment.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and right now I haven't needed one, luckily. So, but it'll be up shortly. So yeah, if just hit me up on LinkedIn if you need anything. I'm happy to help.
Awesome, man.
If you just need, if you have some copper stab sets and you just need a case for it, let me know. I can get you custom case as well. Custom
Very
fitted.
cool.
It's, make your life a little easier.
Absolutely. And I do want to kind of revisit one we talked about earlier. It's been mulling in the back of my head here. So you talked about the NITA apprenticeship program. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so this is cool. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Well, what they really want to do is formalize the structure, right?
Okay.
Get the right partners on board as an accredited program. And I think what they're trying to do, because it's this hodgepodge network right now. And so I think what they really want to do is set up, here's the standard, and here's the way we teach it. And now let's go out and find all the partners that are going to teach it in unison the way we want to teach it. So it's a formal program out there versus, we got this partnership with this one in Louisiana and this partnership over at this one. And so I think that's an exciting thing. It's I want, again, I'm not speaking officially for,
of course,
NITA. I'm just kind of relaying what kind of is publicly out there that I know. It's really an effort of standardization and mass execution.
Absolutely. And I can definitely see the need there to that point, because again, several of the clients that we're working with right now are developing their own internal programs. And it's just let's get this guy, let's push him through, get the CTDs, let's work on PNC one day, go climb on top of the transformers, do some apparatus, sign the CTDs and go forth. And to see something that would kind of address that, prior to onboarding type thing, to where we can really grow that, or that, an intensive at the NITA 1 level, to where we can really push them and progress them towards the 2 and forward mobility, I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, because in the end, when you take the test to become a NITA level 2, everybody's taking the same test. Everybody's taking the same test for level 3. So take all those fundamentals and standardize them in the same program across the nation, right? Versus having this kind of unofficial network of people producing test technicians. So
absolutely.
That's really where they want to go. And again, it goes back to the need of we need more technicians, right? People are retiring. We don't have enough people entering to handle the growth, much less people retiring and handling the current business. So yeah, it's not just something that needs to be done. I think it really gives people an alternate career path to think about. I know there's been a lot of talk about blue collar jobs. You got plumbers making great livings now.
Oh, absolutely.
And what's happening again, private equities entering the market, and hey, blue collar companies are for sale. Let's buy them up. Let's do a big roll up and let's try to rebrand it under some nonsense name and wreck the whole thing. And meanwhile, guy just cashed out for, $6.5 million, and now he's going to start another company. So yeah, I think it's a really good time to be in a technical field that's not IT. And you spend 2 years at a place like TSTC, or you do an apprenticeship and you learn how to be a plumber, you learn how to be an electrician, you learn how to do these things, because construction's not stopping. It's going, and so all these jobs are greatly needed. And so I think if I was 18 looking at it again, knowing what I know now,
Well, and I would say even more so now, if you think about the onset of AI, I'm seeing it right. Everybody's the AI fear mongering on LinkedIn, your job won't be here next year and it's going to happen and all that. If you want to get into an insulated career field where that's going to be very hard for AI to take over your role, it's going to be very hard to train a robot to get on top of a transformer or to do a PNC protective scheme and setting relays. You have to have hands-on people to do that.
Yeah.
And so you'll be very insulated, at least for a very, very long time coming, unless we have some resurgence of super robots.
Well, that's a really interesting topic to breach here, because what would AI look like in the testing field? Because look, if you're a songwriter, that might be a bit troublesome for you, because I can write a song on an AI program and put a tune to it and put a fake voice to it, and there's my song. If you're a radiologist, is a radiologist going to go away? No, but the AI technology might be able to diagnose better than he can or faster than he can, but he still has to evaluate what to do in that case. And AI could help that person decide what to do, but ultimately, the plan of care relies with the radiologist. So the radiologist isn't going away. How they approach the service is going to change. So I think you can kind of see that in this industry, right? The machinery that we use, the parts and components that we use are getting smarter.
Absolutely.
And you look at an auto technician now, right?
You have to have a computer for everything.
You got to have
very
a computer
specialized.
for everything. And so, God, I mean, we would send out with ProTech even just so many laptops with the equipment. Everything's getting that way. So I think you have to adapt. So on the front side, that might make your testing job easier. Again, you still need to know why you're testing it and kind of what's going on, but it will make the job faster and easier. It could offer you a solution to a problem. You're trying to find a splice somewhere on a 5-mile run of cable, right? The AI could potentially help you pinpoint that splice a lot faster than you running your standardized test. You still got to do the splice. You still have to fix the
splice has to be done, and you still have to run the test. So the leads have to be hooked up. And
what you're doing necessarily isn't going to change. How you do it may change.
I couldn't agree more. And that is one of those questions I broach typically with the majority of my guests. And your opinion resonates with pretty much in line with what everybody else has said. I think we're some of the testing technicians that are out there, and this isn't me, this is coming from everyone, where we're not as focused on the practical troubleshooting aspects. It's easier to push the buttons and run the report and get what it's doing. It does a lot of that for you and does it very well. But again, if that fails, what do you do on the backside? And so that's been a common concern that's been echoed. And it seems like where most folks see the benefit from the AI and kind of bringing it to the forefront and working it as an advantage would be data aggregation over long periods of time. If you really want to be tracking where your transformer degradations are or through faults or whatever it may be, now you have the ability, and use AI to populate those data sets and things like that. So I could see some benefit there from predictive and predictive maintenance type scheduling, things from that nature. But it's still going to require the manual hooking up of all this equipment, and there's so much skill that goes into it. It never goes according to design engineer standards and specs, right? There's always going to be a rack that's off, or all the settings were left on, or whatever it may be. And to me, it just seems like we're still a far stretch away from the technology catching up to the human factor in that particular, or in our industry, I should say.
Yeah, the computer's still not smarter than the human, right? The computer, if you look at what AI does, it just knows the entire internet, right? It's got a volume of resources to quickly come up with an answer, the best answer you're looking for, cutting through the search garbage, right? So that's really what it's doing. Is it's saying, okay, make me a cartoon with this cell saying this, and make this guy funny and people laughing. And okay, it just took what you described, which is called a prompt, and went out and said, what does this look like? And looked at all of its resources and imaged that cartoon just like your brain does, basically, right? Yeah. And it did it in 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you tweak it, right? And you're iterating, right? So again, the tool, it's a tool, right?
Absolutely.
It's making your job faster and easier and scaling, just like a computer is a tool. Wow, that really changed our lives when we were growing up, right? Hey, the little cable box on top of our TV changed our lives when we were growing up. The bicycle changed people's lives, right? It's all these little tools that make your job a little easier, a little better. You're more productive, right? And so now, does that mean overall you need less people? How many typists do we have in the world now, right? Not very many. But what jobs do they create, right? Anybody in the motion picture industry or the sound recording industry can thank Edison for just about every job that's out there right now. So while some jobs may go away because we're more efficient at doing things, that creates a whole new other set of jobs to do things. So you just got to keep training. Like we're going back to lifelong learning, right?
It's the evolution of industry, man.
What I learned in college, I use very little of today, maybe soft skills mainly, but it's still the core foundation and the way of thinking for what I do as a marketing professional, as a scaling a business professional. But I still have to keep up with what works currently and the tools that work. We were talking about editing software earlier before.
Absolutely.
Right? One thing goes away and you learn how to use a different tool. Still works kind of the same way, but this one's a lot better now. Hey, guess what? AI can add the subtitles for me. I don't need to manually do that. So you're not losing a job on that. It's saving me time, which means I can produce more content or I can make better content.
Yep.
So I think we got to look at AI in a positive way like that. Are there dangers to it? Sure. Yeah, of course there's dangers to it. But I think, the upside is really great out there, especially for this industry with regards to diagnosis and figuring out the way to go to do the repair.
Couldn't agree with you more. And my friend, we just hit the hour mark. Time flies by. That was pretty damn impressive. So we probably need to get close to wrapping it up here before kids get here and it gets untenable from a volume perspective. So,
yes, sir.
But I would love any final thoughts. Well, I do like to ask this question. I'll ask it of you. So if you could go back and talk to a young Matt just getting into the power industry, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, if I just want to get in the power industry, there's two ways to go about it. Obviously, you can go the engineering route, right? And I think I know a guy who's an electrical engineer undergrad, mechanical engineer, graduate student, some other engineer, doctorate, and he holds all these patents on sonograms, and like he works for GE and runs the European theater for GE. Just learn everything you can about the industry. Go look up who the companies are. Like go into PowerTest website and look to see who the companies are that are registered, and just introduce yourself to the HR person on LinkedIn and just say, I'm really interested in becoming an apprentice, right? They'll grab you in a heartbeat really quick. Just go be an apprentice, right? You make good money just being an apprentice learning. So that's what I do. I just go knock on the door, right? Just show some aggressiveness and some resilience and make them really believe you want to be there, and just spend some time learning, right? And that's all you need to do. Just knock on the door.
Awesome. And then for folks that want to find you, where's the best place to reach out to you at?
Yeah, so you can just reach me on LinkedIn. Just look up, there's my name there, Matt, Mladenka. And just ping me on LinkedIn, or if you want to email me, you can email me at Matt, M-A-T-T, at epic, E-P-I-C, testequipment.com.
Awesome, brother. Well, it was a fantastic conversation, and thank you so much for taking the time to hop on with us. Like I said, anytime I get a chance to kind of, bring the personal conversations we're having alight and all those other good things, it's like, well, this may be of value to someone. So, and definitely some great insights on what's going on in the test realm. I've definitely got some homework to do. I'm going to look at Raytech and Mini ATOS and +5 4000, the Tau 3. So I've got my homework cut out for me after I follow up on a couple of emails here. But no, man, it was truly a fantastic time, and thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Yeah, man, appreciate the time, brother. Thank you for inviting me. As always, welcome to hit me up anytime for another conversation. I always enjoy talking to you, man.
Wonderful, brother. Well, until next time, folks, Mike out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a review. For more insights, contact info, job offerings, and other content, check out our Linktree sites at Linktree/Micah W. Clay or Linktree/Southern Staffing. We'd love to hear any feedback. And if you know anyone we should highlight, feel free to drop us a message. As always, thanks to those who work tirelessly to keep the lights on. Until next time.